Good morning, APE students. It's Mrs. Francis. I hope that you're having a great day. I'm going to walk you through the calculations using Google Sheets for biodiversity in Gorongosa. And this is the student activity handout that you should be working with. Remember that it's probably best if you download this or print it and write on it, or use Cami and write on it. If you are just typing in here and you move away or shut down this tab, you will lose all of your information. So beware of that. Okay, part one, you're going to use the interactive launcher or you're going to launch the interactive map, I'm sorry, and you're going to select for vegetation types and limestone gorge. And I think you're going to be okay with that part. So I'm going to move on here. You've done part two, where you have calculated by hand the richness, which is represented by the variable S, and then the Shannon Diversity Index, which is represented by the letter H. Here's our equation for that. And then finally, after calculating that, we calculate evenness. And evenness tells us a little bit about not only how many organisms that we have and the type that they are. So maybe I should say that our first richness category shows us the type of organisms we have. So we have 10 types here. And then the Shannon Biodiversity Index tells us not only the type, but the abundance, or how many we have of each type, and helps us do a calculation in which we should have a range somewhere between, I believe it's 1.5 to 3.5, 3.5 being more biodiverse. And then finally, evenness, where we also consider not only how many we have, but how that compares to other species. So looking here, wildebeest through impala, we have low numbers here. And then for these, baboon, warbler, and crane, we have a higher number. And so there's a difference between this group and this group here. And so the values for this range from 0 to 1. 1 would be perfectly even, where each one of these would have the same number of organisms. So we already know that we're not going to have a 1, but this is actually, I anticipate that we will have a value that's greater than half. Okay, so the part that I think that folks are most interested in finding out about is part 3. And this is where we're going to get the WildCam Gorongosa data. There's, I think, over 30,000 lines of data. This is where we had cameras that captured the organisms going by, and then each capture of an organism was recorded, and this is the data that resulted. So I'm going to right-click on this link, and I'm going to say Open in a new tab. So from there, we're going to select over on the right-hand side, Enter into the WildCam Gorongosa lab. There's a little Enter button there. We see a beautiful floodplain, and then we'll scroll down and choose to work as an explorer today. Now we have a map of the Gorongosa National Park, and over here there is a key down on the bottom left that helps us to understand what types of land we have here. So everything from the lake, right, to the limestone gorges, that light green color, the floodplains with this light blue. And over here, we have a place to download our data. So I'm going to click on that, and that is going to download our data. I have a successful download here. And now this is on my computer, and I can upload this. Okay, so now we need to upload our data from our computer, and we're going to upload that onto a Google Sheet. So you're going to want to perhaps create a new tab. So I'm going to do that here. And then I'm going to use the waffle button and select Sheets. There's a couple of different ways that you can do this, but I just think this is the easiest for us for these purposes. I'm going to ask for a blank sheet. So I'm going to depress here or click here. And a new Google Sheet should come up. Now I'm going to title this like Gorongosa lab data. So I just click right here. My computer's a little slow today. And I can hit the enter button. It's going to save that new title. And then folks, it's really important that you start moving your stuff into the appropriate folders on Google Drive. So you can hit the move button here. You can also do file move, and then you can select your file here, your folder. So if I put mine into apes, I would say move here and then move. All right, so this is organizing my lab data. And now I'm going to put my cursor in A1. It's the best place to put your cursor when you're working with Excel or Sheets or any kind of spreadsheet, and you're going to import. So that's the next thing, File, and then you're going to go to Import, select that. And for most people, it's going to download itself on your computer from earlier. It had downloaded itself into the download folder. So now we're uploading, and I'm going to say select a file from my device. And if you're on a Mac, you've got to find out where your downloads go to. So let's hope this is working. There, yep, there it goes. And I'm going to select downloads. And I want to make sure that this is in date order here. So you can select this here and it will organize for you. And yeah, there it is, Wildcam. So I'm going to click on that and then just hit open, or I could double click on it. Now you're going to get a new window here. And it's going to ask you a couple of questions before it does the final import. So it's uploading the data right now. I would like the location. I'm going to say replace the sheet because I've already named this, and so I'm just going to replace the sheet here. This is comma separated values, so these actually, the separator type would be comma, or just detect automatically is fine. And then convert text to numbers, and now I'm going to select import data. Now there are 30 to 40,000 lines of data in this file. So this is going to take a little bit of time, so you have to have some patience here. You have to have some patience, okay? So it's coming along here. And you can see I have another copy of this up here. And I'm going to use this as my cheat sheet here because this is a lot of the work that I have already done. So it's going to end up looking like this. Let me see if mine has actually made it on its way up yet. All right, it's going to take a little bit of time. So I think I'm going to use this one right here because my computer is running quite slowly today. So once your data is uploaded, and maybe you're hitting pause on this video, waiting for your data to get uploaded, I'm going to put my cursor back into this A1 position. So this reminds me of Battleship, the game Battleship, and everything has a letter and a number. On Google Sheets, the letter comes first and the number comes second. Okay, I am going to kill this process here. Oh, it just came up. That's okay. And now you should have one tab down here. And the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to crunch this data together. And we are going to do that by creating a pivot table. So what you'll want to do is find data up here. And then you're going to go to pivot table. And you're going to make your pivot table 1. Now mine's going to show up as pivot table 2 because you can see I already have one in here. When I create it, I want it as a new sheet. So I'll hit create or select create here. Oh, mine actually says pivot table 3 because this is the third time I've done it. And again, we're crunching a lot of data here, and so it's going to take a minute. And we're waiting for it to say rows and columns up here. And you can tell that it's still working right over here. Okay, so now I see rows, values, and columns. And the first thing that I'm going to do is start to add in some rows. And specifically, I want to know, not the season and not the latitude. So not sure why that clicked on right away. So I'm going to click those off with the little X button. And I'm going to hit add a row. And I specifically want veg type or vegetation type. So I'm going to click that on. And you'll see in just a minute, you'll see 4 different vegetation types pop up here. There they are, floodplain limestone, the woodland, and the mixed savanna and woodland. And then I'm going to add another row. Seems kind of interesting that they call it row, but this is a pivot table. So it's conglomerating data together. And I want to know the species. So we're looking at species diversity. And so you'll see it actually appear in another column, but technically, because this is a pivot table, this is another row. So you'll see floodplain, and you'll see listed in column B all of the organisms that they spied on the cameras in the floodplains. And it's going to count, we're going to get the count of how many instances we have of that. And so that's going to become our values. So over on the right-hand side in the pivot table editor, by the way, you can only see the pivot table editor if you have your cursor over here in A or B and probably C. But again, I recommend that you keep your cursor over here at A1. So the values, I'm going to say add, and I'm going to actually select the one that my cursor landed on, which is species count. And now it will tell us in just a moment what the total count is for each one of these species. Okay, so I've got 9, and these are all the numbers here. Okay, so this is what we're going to need to use to analyze our data, and there's a couple of different things that we're going to need to do. So the first thing that we're going to calculate is richness, and richness is just a count of how many different types of these species. So I could literally go through here and count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But with so much data, that's a real pain. And so let me show you the way that we can do this. So I'm going to title one of these cells kind of off to the side here. I'm going to use my F column here. And I'm going to say richness, and I'm going to actually put species so that we know it's species richness. And I want to know how many different types of organisms there are in the floodplain, in the limestone gorge, etc. So I'm going to put my cursor over the floodplain grassland. I'm going to use Control C for copy, and then I'm going to put it in the cell underneath richness. If it will let me do this. There we go. And I'm going to use Control V to paste that. All right, I'm going to scroll down. The next vegetation type I have is the limestone gorge. I will select that cell, Control C for copy. I'm going to scroll back up, and oh man, if we ever can get there, underneath the floodplain grassland, I will put the next type. And then again, I'm scrolling down. The next type is this Miambo woodland. Going to Control C. Now, I could hand type these if I wanted, but I'm not going to. And I'm scrolling back up. It may have been faster if I had. And then finally, the last type, which I think is the mixed savanna and woodland. So I'll click on that, Control C, and then bring myself back up to my little chart that I'm making here. All right, you can do this, Google Sheets. You got it. Okay, I'm going to go like this. Now, I'm going to make another category off in G. So I like to make these a little bit bigger, and I have a hard time not being able to see the lines. So I'm going to highlight all of this, and then I'm going to select the borders, and then I'm going to select all borders. And boy, oh boy, that really helps me out. Okay, so this is our title. Maybe I'll bold that and maybe I'll make it centered so I know that that's not, there we go. Okay, so now we need to have our computer do a mathematical function for us so that we can find out how many different types of species. So what we do whenever we want to enter a mathematical function is we use the equal sign. And the particular function that we're going to use is called COUNTIF. And so I'm going to start typing count, and you can see there's all sorts of counting functions here, but we're going to do COUNTIF, not COUNTIFs, but COUNTIF. They are slightly different. And then you're going to get a parenthesis. And that parenthesis, and if it doesn't show up, just type in a parenthesis. And the first thing it wants to know is where do you want the computer to count? Well, I want it to count from here, which is B2, down to B34. And so you see I left clicked on this and just dragged this down, and it actually put in B2 through B34. It's in this nice orange color, and it's telling me, hey, this is where you've selected, and that is my range. I can hand type this in. Sometimes I find that faster. And then when I'm done with my range, I tell it that I'm done by putting a comma. And now it wants to know what's the criteria for counting. And so like in this example, it says, hey, if it's greater than 20, well, I don't have numbers here, so that's not going to work. So the criteria that I'm going to use, I'm going to put a quotation mark, an asterisk, which means count everything that's unique. And then I will close that with another quotation mark and then a close parentheses and then enter. So what I see here is there are 33 unique types of species in the floodplain grassland. Now, if I continue, I want to do my next one, which is limestone gorge. So I'm going to use the same function. I'm going to put in an equal sign, and I'm going to start to type in COUNTIF, and I will open the parentheses and give it my range. So you'll see if I type it in, and I'm looking here, my range is going to be B and then 36. So I can do B36, and then I can say colon. And then I look at where this ends. That's another way I can do this. Okay, it ends at B69. I got to go back up there. Okay, B69. Do you see how it highlighted that entire area for us? That's my range. My criterion is the same. Quotation mark. Oh, there we go. Quotation mark, asterisk, quotation mark, close parentheses, enter. And now if I look up, there are 34 different species in the limestone gorge. I'm going to continue to do the same thing. So COUNTIF, open parentheses. Now I'm going to go down. This is my next type, Miambo woodland. This looks like it has a smaller number. Just don't have as many. I'm going to close that off. And the quotation, star, quotation, close parenthesis, and enter, which gives me 25. So definitely less species there. All right, and our last one, equal sign, COUNTIF, open parentheses, find my range. This is for the mixed savanna. Ooh, this looks like it might have more. Okay, so I'm going to keep going. I keep pulling this down, keep on pulling this down. All right, all the way through zebra here. So B97, colon, which means through, B139. And then I use the comma to say I'm done entering my range, and my criterion is the same. Quote, asterisk, quote, close parentheses. Okay, so what this is giving me is species richness, which, by the way, the value, like the variable for that is S. It should be a capital S, not a lowercase s, so I should fix that. All righty, I'm going to do that. And I'm going to make this centered, just so it's really clear. And I'm going to bold that. Okay, so now I have the answer to the richness for my first answers here. And so this is number 6. And I would be putting my numbers in here for richness. This is the S value, and it's going across here. So it's like 33, and then, what was it, 34, and then I think it was 25. I'm trying to remember from my memory here. Okay, and then 43, which we did anticipate that number would be bigger. And now we have our first row of data. Okay, now one thing I'm going to suggest that you do is that you're going to take this and we're going to get rid of it, but we're going to keep it. So let me tell you how I'm going to do that. I highlighted it and I said Control C. It is now captured to be another copy, and you're going to add a tab. So I'm going to go to Add Sheet, and I'm going to now just go to A1 and do Control V, and now you'll see that what I just had done is now here. And I'm going to rename that sheet. So I right click on the sheet there, or you can click on the little down arrow, and I'm going to rename this, and I'm going to call this Richness S. I'm going to have to make a little asterisk here because I already have a tab named that. And now I have Richness, and I can move that tab over. Okay, so let me go back to my pivot table. That's for you, pivot table number 1. Now I'm going to delete that because I don't want that anymore. In fact, I kind of would like to see borders everywhere. So I'm going to put my cursor right here in this square, and I'm going to select borders for everything. I just think it's easier if it will ever let me do this, right? All right, here we go. Okay. Oh, maybe that's worse. I don't know. We'll see. Okay, so what we're going to do now is I'm going to move a couple of columns over. Actually, I'll just do it in D because I think that's what I did during class time. So the next thing that we have to do is calculate the Shannon Diversity Index. And if we look at our table that we had done by hand, you'll see that we needed PI, the natural log of PI, and then we multiplied those together. I don't think I can copy this over, but let's see. It might let me. Nah, it's all going as one. So I'm going to make this PI. That's going to be the label for my first column. I'm going to take the natural log, or ln, of PI, capital P. The I is really supposed to be a subscript. I'm not going to mess around with that right now. Then PI times the natural log of PI. PI is your proportion of animals compared to the total. And then finally H. Now, in class, we had some issues with the PI. I have since then figured out what we need to do to make this much easier. I think you're going to be really pleased. Okay, so in order to get PI, you've got to take the part out of the whole. And my whole is down here where it says total. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to hit in D2. I hope you can see that that's where I'm at. I'm going to type in an equal sign. Let's see if it's going to let me do this. There we go, an equal sign. And then I'm going to type in, or I can actually just select, I'm going to say this cell right here, which is C2, and I want to divide that by the whole. Okay, and before we just picked C35. Okay, because that is our whole number. That's all of these numbers added together. But the problem is when we would drag this, it was causing a lot of trouble. Oh, look at me. I clicked on another one, so that didn't work. Okay, so here's what you need to do. In order to keep this the same, you're going to insert a $sign in front of C and a $sign after C before 35. And then move your cursor over and hit the enter button. Okay, and this should be the correct value. Now, what I love about this now is when I bring my cursor over this bottom right-hand square and it becomes a plus sign, I am now going to left click on that and I am going to drag it down until I get to the end of my column there. And now all of my values are there. Now look at, if you go into any of these cells, you see this, the first value. So this one should be C14, but it's still over C35. Isn't that awesome? I love that. Okay, so then the next column, we're going to do an equal sign. There is a function natural log, so we can just say ln, and we're going to do, I think we need to do parentheses. And then we want ln of the next door neighbor. We want ln of the pi, or the proportion. And then we'll close the parentheses and hit the enter. We should be getting a negative number here. And now I can take my cursor, put it over that little box that's in the bottom right-hand side, and I can drag it down. How cool is that? Okay, that's looking good. All right, for the next column, you're going to do equal sign. And now I need P sub I. Now the asterisk for multiplication times its next door neighbor, natural log of pi. And then I hit the enter button. I'm getting a number here. And I'm going to do the same type of drag down. I've got to make sure my cursor turns into a plus sign. And then I will drag it down. Okay, these are bolded. I'm not sure why. Okay. Oh, maybe because I had the chart there earlier. That's why. Okay, now finally H. So what we need to do for H is we need to get a sum of all of these, but it's actually the negative sum of all of these. So I'm going to type in, whoops, okay, good. In H2, I'm going to type in negative sum, and then I'm going to open a parentheses, and it asks you for all the values, and I can grab it just like I did before getting a range. So I'm left clicking and dragging, and then I'll close the parentheses, and now I have a value, 2.046. This is my Shannon Diversity Index for floodplain grassland. For floodplain grassland. So on my sheet here, and again, I think I mentioned this before, but download this sheet or open it in Kami, because if you walk away from this or close the tab, you're losing your data. Okay, so for the floodplain grassland, I've got 2.04. Okay, and then now I would need to go through and do this for each one of these. For each one of these. Okay, so I'm doing the same type of functions. So I would just sort of scroll down here. And honestly, I think you can just take these. I'm going to copy them, Control C, and now I'm going to put them here, Control V. And now all I have to do is put the plus sign over that and drag all three down at the same time. Ah, isn't this awesome? And now, yep, my values are coming up here. And I think I can put this right in. Oh, no, I think I should just redo that one. Okay, so I've got all my values. Okay, I'll show you how to do that again. And here's going to be my H. So I'm going to say equals the negative sum, open parentheses, of all of these guys right here. And then close parentheses, enter. Yep, that looks like a good value. Remember, a value should be somewhere between 1.5 and 3.5. So for the limestone gorge, does it make sense that the diversity would be down? What's the reasoning behind that? Okay, so I think it was 1.40, so I would put that in here, 1.40. Okay, I'll show you real quick again how I did that, just in case you didn't catch it. So what I did is I selected the very last row, all three at once. Okay, I'm going to do Control C for copy, and then I put my cursor right here next to the baboon so it'll fill in 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to do Control V and it pastes there. Now instead of clicking again, since all of these are selected, I just selected the box, the very tiny box to the right when my cursor became a plus sign, and I drug this down. Now this one's going to be a little bit shorter because we had less species. And I'm going to go boom. And now I've got all of these values in, and then right next to here, I'll get that Shannon index number by going equals the sum. Oh, that's not right. Equals the negative sum, open parentheses. So if I add all of these together, close the parentheses. Ooh, that number is low. Did I make a mistake? F71 to F95. I'm going to have to double check that I can't remember if it was low or not. All right, so 0.33. There are less species there, but this should take into account how many there are, and they're really 1,244 compared to 15,000 here, compared to 18,000 here. Okay, I think that data is making sense. All right, one more last time. Whoops, you're doing the copy. We're doing the paste. We're doing the drag. You guys, isn't this so much easier? My Siri is going off right now. She told me she was having trouble hearing me. Okay, what do you expect for this one? Do you think this number is going to be bigger? We're up to 32,000 organisms. That's my guess. Let's see. So equals a negative sum of all of these very tiny numbers. These are tiny numbers, folks. I'm a chemist. I would normally put these in scientific notation. 2.68. So that is our highest number, if I'm remembering correctly. 2.68. How are we doing with that, folks? Is this making sense? Okay, so now the last part of this that we need to do is the evenness. And so for this, I'm just going to go up to the top here. And let's just double check our equation for evenness. So evenness is H over H max. And H max is the natural log of richness. Now we've already calculated the richness, 33, 34, 25, and 43. And I had you guys save that in your table here. So I'm going to go over there and, okay, let me see if I've got them here. Okay, still here. So now I am going to go here and I'm going to just say, hey, I'm going to make another, I'm going to get H max. And H max is going to equal the natural log, parenthesis, of the richness value. There's that. And then I can do that same thing, dragging down those numbers. And now I have my H max for each one of these. I'm going to make that centered, I think. Okay, let's see if I can copy these over. I'm going to hit copy and go back to my pivot table. Okay, so now I want to put in my, oh, it gave me an error. Let's see. When I copied these before, it worked okay. I'm not sure. All right, what do we got here? A B3. How about we do this? I'm going to see if I can grab this whole thing. Let's copy that. And let's go back to our pivot table. Let's see if this works. Otherwise, we'll have to figure out something else. And, oh yeah, it's not happy, is it? You know what I can do? Let's just make this really quick. 33, 34, 25. What was it, 43? Pretty sure it is. Let's just double check. Yep. Okay. So I'm solving my problem here as quickly as I can for you, and I think you can do the same type of thing. So now we have, I'll put those lines in there. We have our richness, we have our H max, okay? And we have our H values here, don't we? All along here. I think you can actually do this if this is helpful for you. Let's see, H2. Nope, doesn't do it in here. It does it in Excel, not here. Okay, that's okay. So what we're going to do is get evenness here. Evenness. No, that can't be right. Oh yeah, double N. All right, doesn't seem right to me. Does it seem right to you guys? Just seems odd. Okay. All right, so here we go. I'm going to make that nice and centered. I think I may have centered these ones. I'm going to make these right justified. Numbers are easier when they're right justified. All right, so for this, we said the equation for evenness is equal to H. So in this case, this number right here divided by, so I'm just using the slash, and H max. And then I hit enter. Oh, it thinks it's a text. Oh, that's so interesting. I wonder why that is. Equals ln of this number. Let's see if this fixes it for us. This is one of those things about Google Sheets that I don't love. So H, and I don't think that, yeah, H divided by H max equals, there we go. Okay, so I'm not sure why that gave us grief, but here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to copy those. Nope, I'm going to take this and I'm going to pull this down so I get my natural log of richness, which is H max. And now for this one, I need to say equals, and I've got to find out where my H is. So here it is. So it's in G36, so I'll type there, divided by its H max equals. And I've got to keep doing that same thing. So this is Woodland. I'm going to have to scroll down. So here's Woodland's H. It's divided by, I got to scroll back up. It's H max equals. And then finally, the equal sign. And this is the mixed 2.61 divided by, and I'm going to scroll all the way back up, H max. And there we go. So these values are supposed to be between 0 and 1, 1 being completely even. So our most even is the Woodland Savanna. So I'm going to put 0.59 for my first value for my limestone gorge. I will put 0. I hate these ones. Okay, I've got this 8's going to make this 9 go up. This 9's going to make this go up. So I'm going to say 0.40 for my next one. For the Woodland, I am going to say 0.01. I like that leader 0, the 0 on the other side of the decimal point. And our last one, 0.71. And that, my dears, is how we get the data in this little tiny data table. I hope this helped you, and let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.